I'm Meredith, this is Harrison, and we are P1 Pigs, a Formula One podcast that looks at data and analytics to give you the inside line on Formula One races and betting. We thought it would be great time to come back and talk a little bit about the end of the season. Next up, we've got Las Vegas, and just went through a really fun North American, South American leg. How are we feeling, Harrison?
Good. I think we learned a lot. I think the season, as we come to these last couple of races, it's a little bit more predictable. We know what teams are going to be finishing, generally in the top three positions. We know Mercedes is generally going to be in that fourth spot. And we generally know that the Sauber is going to be following it up at the bottom of the pack. So I think it's been cool to see the rookie driver step in. Liam Lawson, shout out, doing a great job. Calipino stepping in, doing a fantastic job. And so I really think they're showing that F2 to F1 ladder is really working really well. It's really cooking and providing some fantastic drivers. Shout out Ollie Behrman, who, maybe struggled a little bit in the Haas last race, but, I think did an amazing job in the Ferrari, taking over for Carlos Sainz earlier in the season. So, yeah, I'm excited to get to Vegas. I think Vegas is a cool circuit. And I think now we have so much data. We know so much about these vehicles. We really have a better understanding for kind of who should be a favorite as we walk into Vegas. I think, the really other interesting piece to look at is kind of the constructors, who's going to finish in P2. I think there's some value to potentially look at maybe a little bit of a Ferrari bet, but we, really need McLaren to kind of fall off as they're 30 points behind. So let's maybe drop into FanDuel and maybe look at some Vegas bets that we thought were kind of fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to start with team of the winning driver. And I really think that this is a Ferrari race to lose. Three main reasons. Charles is driving probably the best he's driven in his career. No mistakes. Really seems to be in a good place of the team. I think he knows he's the number one driver now that Sainz is off to Williams. The second piece here is that Ferrari seem to do really, really well on low grip circuits, on circuits with a lot of stop and go. I look a little bit to how dominant they were in Monaco. I look a little bit to, how the car looked in Baku, where they were very, very strong as well. So I think this is going to be Ferrari's race to lose. I think McLaren will be strong as well, but I really think that Leclerc is just in a stronger place than Lando is right now. I think Lando's still kind of fighting for the championship, and he's going to have kind of a different mentality. He's more focused on beating Max, scoring as many points as possible, where Ferrari really want to win this race. I think they're in a really good place to potentially do that with the characteristics of the vehicle, and Charles driving in just a really good place right now. Not to mention that engine does also seem to be pretty strong in kind of stop-start braking zones, which we know there'll kind of be a lot of in Vegas. So kind of to follow that up, I do like Charles to win this race. I do think that Ferrari had an opportunity to win outright. I just think Max and Lando are so focused on each other that they're more focused on beating each other than winning the race, where I think this gives Ferrari an opportunity a little bit like what we saw in the United States, where if they get out in the lead, if they can qualify well, or if Charles can stay close for that first stint and then undercut, I really think that they'll have the pace to win the race. Yeah, kind of like what we saw in the US, kind of like what we saw, how strong the car was in Saudis. Yeah, I think you've got to look pretty heavily at Ferrari this weekend, next weekend, rolling into Vegas. And then the last piece that I absolutely love is Sainz on the podium. Man, this has probably got to be one of my favorite bets. I think Sainz is driving super well right now. I think had he not had those issues in Brazil crashing out, he would have been starting in a super good place. He struggles a little bit in the wet sometimes, doesn't necessarily have the confidence that Charles has, but that's not going to be the problem in Vegas. I think you're talking about a low grip circuit. I think you're talking about potentially one of Sainz's last opportunities to win a race before he goes to Williams. And so I think the motivation there is going to be really, really strong. Now, I don't think he's necessarily strong enough to beat Charles outright, which is why you see me betting, Charles to win. But I do like Sainz on the podium. I do kind of like a double podium here for Ferrari. I imagine them just being really strong next weekend. McLaren will be there, thereabouts. I think Red Bull is going to be the one that we don't really know. We know they brought some updates to the United States, but, the car didn't look super great in Brazil. I know Max went on to win the race, but, had he not had that late red flag that gave him the free pit stop, he wouldn't have won. So I'm still not necessarily super high on a Red Bull to be really efficient on a Vegas type circuit, but I do think it'll be McLaren. And really, Ferrari have shown that they're probably the best when it comes to taking off the downforce. Look at Monza, right? So yeah, I imagine a strong Ferrari next weekend. I got signs to podium. I got Charles to win the race, and I got a Ferrari winning team. Feel
Yes. And also too, like, just contrasting goals and what people are trying to get out of this race. Lando obviously is still trying to catch Max, although that feels like it's all but a foregone conclusion that Max is going to win the championship this year. I think that you're absolutely right. I think Sainz, ever since coming back from the break, has been really strong and really wanting to kind of prove a point. He doesn't really owe anything to anyone without burning too many bridges. I think
Mhm.
he's gonna be down now. Hopefully, we don't run into any potholes or drain covers. That was pretty disastrous last year, but really excited about Vegas. After last year's inaugural race, what are you most excited about this year for Vegas?
Yeah, as we understand a little bit more about the vehicles and kind of their 2024 setups, right? We know the Ferrari is really good with low downforce. We know the McLaren is really strong through these high speed turns. We know the Red Bull is kind of an in between. It's cool as we get to Vegas, as we get to a new circuit with low grip, a lot of high speed turns, super fast, to be able to say, wow, these cars are super close. And also, here are these predictions about how they should be kind of performing on track. Let's see if this actually plays out. And I think that's what is so fun about kind of the later half of the season.
So let me ask you, anything Mercedes wise? Are we kind of expecting them at 5 and 6 again or lower?
Yeah, I think Mercedes are generally the fourth fastest team. I think George can sometimes pull the car up a little bit, but this is a circuit where downforce and efficiency are going to be important. And it just doesn't seem like Mercedes has that peak downforce that the Red Bull has, that the Ferrari has, or even that the McLaren has. So I'm just imagining them being a little bit of a step back. I think they were a little bit masked in Brazil by the wet conditions. I think it made the cold temperatures made the Mercedes a little better on its tires, and I think it'll potentially be in Vegas. So yeah, I'm not super high on Mercedes. I think they're probably pretty focused on rolling over the car into next year. I think there was a time mid-season, kind of post Miami, where they were making a lot of updates, and the car really did seem kind of, in its post spa form that they have a chance to potentially win races. I think that form has kind of fallen off as the year has kind of gone on, and I really think Ferrari had made a pretty big step forward, kind of understanding the Spain update where they were having issues with the bouncing and the porpoising. I think they're doing a lot better now. And I think, part of the reason that I think Ferrari might be, even title favorites going into 2025 is the progress and the strength they've shown this year.
And also too, not so many mess up. It feels like they were a yes, no, yes pit stop away from completely losing a race, a la Leclerc in Monaco a few years ago. Let me ask you one more question, just in terms of winding down the season.
Yep.
We saw Alpine get some big points randomly,
Amazing. Double
luckily,
podium.
double podium last time out. What are we thinking in terms of the midfield teams? Where any ideas on kind of what those are going to look like going into the final races?
Yeah, I think Haas are going to be strong. I think Liam Lawson at V Card makes them, more competitive than when Danny Rick was there. I think it looks like Haas have made a nice step forward with the update that they brought to the United States. I expect them to be strong on home track again. I think they know that their fans are there, that their sponsors are there. I think they'll be strong that race. I'm not expecting anything from Sauber, unfortunately.
No, I don't
No.
think anyone is at
No,
all, as long as they.
unfortunately, Sauber is, until they turn to Audi and really kind of start building on that project. I think they have a good Matteo Bonetto's there from Ferrari, so I think they have a good team principal. It'll just take some years, technically, for them to get that project up and running with the new Audi power unit. So, yeah, I think, once again, I think the Alpine double podium was great, but without the red flag, they would have been forced to pit for tires, and I would have dropped them down the field. So I think we've got to look at that through the lens of that red flag really elevated some teams into the points that probably shouldn't have been there. And I think I'm not necessarily sold on Alpine being a very strong team. I think they just got one call, rolled the dice, and got it extremely right, which can happen in Formula One. But yeah, I'm really expecting Haas to be probably the strongest midfield team through the rest of the season.
I think you're right. I think Liam Lawson has been really impressive to this point. Yeah, I think I really wasn't expecting quite such a wide gap between Danny Rick and Lawson, but outside of being like Sergio Perez's chief antagonist or
Hmm.
Fernando Alonso. I feel like he's done a really good job, and I think that'll be, as great as this season has been, and for me, I think this has been the best season I've been a fan of. Really looking forward to next season as well. I think the rookies, like you mentioned at the top, have been super impressive. Interested to see I feel like the driver seats are set now, maybe with the slight caveat that who actually knows with Sergio what that's going to end up being. But yeah, been really exciting to watch this year. Anything else for us, Harrison, before we bounce?
No, I think this is good. I think it's going to be a Ferrari race next Saturday. And excited to see you guys back after Vegas for the home stretch.
So that is the episode today for P1 Picks. Make sure to like and subscribe. We are on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and stay tuned. We'll have a few more bets going out through the end of the season. Thanks so much, Harrison, for joining me, and we will talk to you soon.